So I'm Jay Fuhrer. Appreciate the invitation. And my topic today is soil regeneration using cover crops. And I'm located here at the ARS station in Mandan. And they've been very gracious to host us, so even provided coffee. And so that's pretty nice. Just a couple items before I start. I know it says on there on the agenda that I'm the soil health specialist for NRCS. That was a previous life. And so I've been retired for a number of years, but so just full disclosure, as I think was the term. And so just so you understand, I do some part-time work at the Minokan farm. And if there is a title I've always preferred, it was conservationist, because I felt it represented the resource. So soil regeneration using cover crops. And the soil regeneration word is pretty interesting in itself. And so when I think of regeneration, I think of something new or something being built back that used to be there. And so in that term, and then using the cover crops to do that. And so I think initially, if I stick with the honesty theme today, initially I wasn't a fan of the cover crops. First time I took a look at them a long time ago. And I was like, my goodness, why would we want to do that? Take up all of our water, all of our nutrient, all of our labor, our equipment, our time. Why would we possibly do this? And so it was a learning process to get my head wrapped around plant physiology, start to understand the whole carbon scenario a little bit better. And over time, I started to realize how my first response was so wrong. And I started going down the road and really never looked back since. So why cover crops in our landscape? Well, covers are pretty obvious, right? Some of you remember March 14 and 15 of this month. You remember what happened on those 2 days? We had this gentle breeze in North Dakota. And we had a little wind erosion going on. And I think that alone starts to understand the term cover. And so it's really important. If our goal is to farm forever, I think it's really important, which is my goal. And so we used to talk quite a bit about the O horizon, the organic matter horizon, and which usually sits on top of the topsoil. And so this was material that fed the profile and moderated the temperature, did all these type things. And so this was really important. So an O horizon, which we don't see that much on most of our cropland soils. At the Minokan farm, if I take my spade and take some soil out, I can actually cut this O horizon off. And I can actually find this O horizon. It might be a ½ inch. Might be a little more than that till I press it down. I can actually take a knife like I did like in photo 3, and you can actually cut it off. And you start to see on number 4, I took it off completely. And so this was our cover, right? And this is what built a lot of our perennial systems, whether it was forested or whether it was grasslands. And so how do we mimic that? And covers are one way to do this. And so we also know that when we have these diversity of plants, we start to have diversity of microbes, as was discussed earlier today, how important the microbes are. And I think if we want soils that represent us well in terms of being able to farm forever with high carbon levels, and we start looking more like carbon stewardship. And carbon stewardship, I feel, represents the whole carbon cycle and the importance of it. It was already discussed today. But I think we need to be looking at all these things that in terms of plant diversity that covers can give us. But now this photo shows us reality, right? This photo shows us what we are today. This is the Minokan farm. This is our landscape. You can see where you are on the flyway, and you can see the geese, and it's cold, and it's going to be a cold start for the spring. And our season will be relatively short, and we'll probably have some periods a bit wet. We'll have some periods a bit dry. But this is the reality now we're trying to bring cover crops into, and this is not an easy scenario. So let's talk about some options. I'm just going to walk through these options, and these are all ones that we've used at the Minokan farm, and we aren't going to spend a lot of time on them, but I'm going to try to give you a few different scenarios. So after wheat or malting barley, that's an easy one, right? We have a window. And so after wheat and malting barley, we've done this a number of times over the years. You can get a diverse mix in of plant diversity that you typically don't have in your crop rotation. And so there's an opportunity. You can also broadcast clovers into winter wheat in the spring. So this is what we did last spring. In April of 24, we put in 3 annuals, Berseem, Crimson, and Subterranean. And then we went ahead and didn't use any pesticide on it for the year. And because we had an understory of clovers in there, providing us with some weed suppression, and we windrowed it and harvested it. And we had a nice cover crop cover going on in the fall, and a nice scenario for fall grazing. So another option. Full seasons, I'm not going to spend much time on that. Daryl covered that very well. One of my farmer friends from Kansas, I had a quote from him. Seems like the only thing that I've ever done to really change soil and increase yields is to use diverse cover crops and graze cattle on the covers. So if you have that opportunity and you have livestock available, that is pretty effective. And so we try to have some diversity in those. And again, Daryl covered this one really good, so we're going to keep moving on that. And so grazing yearlings and sheep at the Minokan farm, I know the photo doesn't show the sheep, but trust me, they're in there. And so consequently, you're looking at a scenario where it gives you an opportunity to bring them on the land. And it brings you an opportunity to bring the microbes that are in the ruminant, that the anaerobic ones that are in the ruminant and the aerobic ones that are on the outside of the critter. And they have legs, right? So they get across the landscape. And then also the armor scenario. Yes, like to see a good covering. This is your going back to soil regeneration. This is really probably what it takes to get some start of an O horizon. And so we start to get the soil adequately covered. Another option was flowers. So sunflower production at the Minokan farm with alternate rows of cover crops. And the covers are all broadleaves, okay? And so allows us to go ahead and have some sunflower production and alternate rows of broadleaf covers. Still allows a grass herbicide. Doesn't look much different when it flowers. And so that's when we have a scenario where we have, looks like any other sunflower crop at that point. And of course, when you harvest, you are ready for grazing because you have a high nutritional ration ready for those livestock. It's already there. Okay. 60-inch corn in covers. We drone applied in 23. That was pretty successful. So most of the time in our environment, central North Dakota, broadcasting is more risky. This particular year, it was kind of golden. We flew it on in early August. I think it rained a day or two later and away it went. It also had residue on the surface, which really helps broadcasting because it usually is a higher germination percent when we have a good ground cover already. Okay. We can also take a look at, Carlos spoke to this, you can take a look at the PLFA or the biology with covers in corn and without the covers in corn. And there is a difference on that because now we've increased the food supply. You increase the food coming into the soil, typically you're going to see a response in the biology. You can also drill it. So this one we drilled by removing a couple of runs over each row, and we went in at V6. And so it's another option. Also, I think the pounds per acre is a variable. We probably could have lowered some of these, and it also gives you an opportunity if some of these are more expensive or some are less expensive, you can do some adjusting on that to help out the economics. Soybean planting, this one is planting green, so we're planting soybean in this photo at the Minokan farm into a cereal rye in the spring. And you can see this one is fairly vegetative, a fairly small plant. And this one would be more, once it starts to decompose, more bacterial. I think Carlos showed that earlier. This would be more bacterial. This one is more fungal. And so I kind of think of it this way. If you're looking at starting planting green for soybean, this is a nice way to do it in this photo right here. Nice entry. Doesn't take quite as big a leap of faith. And it does open the trench easy. It does close the trench easy when you have this environment. And then once your soils are adjusted a bit, you can also start taking a look and having it a much higher carbon plant. And so the two together do a nice job for soybean production. Also, we had three farmers. I think Daryl Oswald did these interviews with three different farmers, Tony Fisher and Ypsilanti, Dana Fletcher and Courtney, and Robert Hedrick in Strasburg, all three farmers in North Dakota that have been planting green for a number of years. You can take a look at their videos on YouTube. You can go to Minokan Farm Video Library and look at them there as well. And so they just do an excellent job of a concept they've been doing for a lot of years. And it does stabilize the landscape. So ultimately, at the end of the day, I think this particular photo right here is kind of what we're looking at. How do we have an environment that's stable, have an environment that allows us crop production, cycles some of the nutrients, builds the aggregates, allows the water entry, does all these things. And I think that's when we have a scenario that works for us. And then when we have some really strong winds like we had in March on 14th and 15th, we see blue skies. And so this is a good goal to work toward. You can also do some grazing on it before you do planting. So sometimes we graze 10 days, 2 weeks, something like that. Cereal rye makes a very, very good grazing ration. And so consequently, just another part of the concept. Companion cover crops in soybean. Farmer friend of mine, this is a photo from Missouri. He's planted buckwheat with the soybean for many years. He waits till it flowers, and then he terminates, and it looks like this, okay? And so he allows the flowering to occur first. And so buckwheat is a companion crop. And he's done this for a number of years. And then more recently, I was reading an article in the South Dakota Soil Health Coalition website. And they were talking about a young farmer, Alex Fraser at Faulkton, South Dakota, who's doing companion planting of rye, oat, and flax. And so Daryl Oswald invited him to come to our August 7th Crops, Covers, and Cows tour and speak about it. And he's doing soybeans on 15-inch, and in between these 15-inch, there's a row of cover crops. And they get terminated somewhere right in between 6 to 8 weeks after seeding. And so that would check a lot of boxes as well, because you're getting some of the exudates already. You're getting the additional cover, you're getting the plant diversity. And so he's been doing this for about, I believe he said 4 years. And so I think it's something we need to be thinking differently a lot of times to bring cover crops into an environment like ours, which isn't easy. You know, we're cold, we're wet, short season, and we have to look at, it's not business as usual, okay? And so we have to be looking at some of these things and then how to do them and how to write that prescription, if you will, of which species should go in there with the soybean. And I think when we do that, I think then that's a little different scenario. Just going to close here on covers and gardens. This is a picture of a full season cover crop in the Minokan High Tunnel. So I clipped it 3 times during the season. And so that particular bed didn't grow vegetables, it grew covers all season long. And I would clip it 3 times and I'd let it start over again. And I wouldn't clip it to the ground, but I'd clip it about halfway down and I would make it start again, right? Because now it's going to give me something in the soil. And so consequently, the one on the right shows how it looks today. I took that picture yesterday. And so you got the same bed. Yes, it was very vegetative during the summer, but now it's ready to go for crop production. And that's going to be, I think, a very healthy bed in the high tunnel. You can also do them green. That one I just showed you was brown this spring, but you can also do them green if I use some cereal rye. And we do those beds as well. And then we cover them for about 10 days. And that take the sunlight away for about 10 days. And then I don't have to apply any pesticide to them and I can plant directly into them. And then, after that, it's a matter of coming in with plant diversity again. So the high tunnel needs plant diversity. And I think with the plant diversity, you can see the various ones here. That really sets the stage, I think, to put that plant in its best opportunity. I'm going to end with self-education. So this is your reading list. And when you have that reading list completed, you email me and then I'll send you a new list. And that way we kind of keep things going. But I did highlight one item on there, and that was Civilization Critical by Darren Qualman. Is a book I read a few years ago, but it had a chart in there that showed a picture of a kind of a circle cycle and a horizontal symbol. And what he was illustrating was the cycle was agriculture for thousands of years for the human race. And the horizontal line was our agriculture, especially the last 75 years or so, where we have extremely high inputs. And so he was, when I think of him and I think of those two symbols, when we bring a cover crop into a cropping system that's never had it, I think we bend that horizontal line back into a bit more of a cycle. And we start to keep nutrients in the field and we start to keep water in the field. And I think then we have a little stronger chance at using that term, which is maybe a bit overused, but the term soil regeneration. And I think that's a good start for it. So with that, I'm going to close. Again, appreciate the opportunity to visit with everyone today. Thank you very much.